First bosses. As your first real challenge, it's their job to set the tone of the game. First impressions mean a lot to most people, and if that job isn't done right, it can really sour one's experience. But when done right, it can immerse the player into the game's world and story. In my eyes, the first boss should be challenging enough to put your skills to the test, but easy enough to give you just a taste of what's to come. The basic countdown rules apply, and the boss will not qualify if they are the only boss in the game. Well friends, I hope you're ready, cause it's time to go galactic! One of Skyrim's big selling points was being able to fight dragons. Naturally, it makes sense for your first major fight to be said selling point. The fight against Marmalnir consists of you, the Housecarl Aerolith, and some Whiterun guards. Marmalnir will fly through the sky, sweeping his enemies with his fire breath, and occasionally he may hover in place to deal some more damage. If you're too far away, however, he will shoot a fireball which will explode on impact with the surface. After losing about 50% of his health, he will lose the ability to fly and is susceptible to melee attacks. When grounded, he'll continue to use his shouts, but he'll also attack by swinging his tail and biting at you with his jaw. If you ask me, this is a great way to teach the player how to fight dragons, especially since they won't spawn without Marmalnir's defeat. And if you look into Skyrim's lore, Marmalnir is one of the few dragons that weren't slain by the blades, so technically speaking, the first dragon you kill is one of the more experienced ones. Now let me point this out because I know someone will. Because of Skyrim's non-linear world, you could do some guild quests and fight an alternate first boss. But he is the first boss of the main story and is how the protagonists discover his or her role as the Dragonborn. He teaches the player how to fight dragons as well as sparks a major event in the story, and I believe that's good enough for a spot on the list. The Kirby franchise was already a very creative series of games, so how do you make it more creative? Mechanize it. And how do you improve on a simple, laughably easy boss? Weaponize it. Clanky Woods is what happens when you give Wispy Woods a missile cannon, bionic arms, and replace his roots with drills, giving him free range. Clanky Woods is first encountered at Stage 1, where he chases you through a small portion of the level, and it is possible to defeat him, but the chase is merely a setup for the actual fight. During the first phase, he'll shoot missiles, drill up the ground to throw rocks, and will drop steel balls from the top of his trunk that will explode, setting the ground ablaze. After losing enough of his health, he'll raise the ground and start putting his newfound freedom into trying to run you over, which Kirby probably deserves for attacking an immobile tree for so many years. On his last life, he'll retreat into the background and trap you. He'll continue to fire his missiles, and drills will now shoot from the walls. Now there are only two ways to deal damage to him. Either attack his drill and get stuck in the ground, or throw the steel balls back at him. This is seriously the best Wispy fight yet, and I have no clue how Hal's gonna top this. "12,000 years, and nothing has changed. The demigod Asura shot out of the sky like an arrow. His daughter Mithra, kidnapped and forced to enhance the power of the other demigods. Amaterasu just chillin' cause she's kind of not supposed to be there. Now returning from Naraka, Asura seeks revenge on the 7 deities." Okay, I'll get to the point. Wise End from Asura's Wrath. First off, stop Wizen's monologue. You get extra wrath for doing so. The unique thing about Asura's Wrath is that the bosses don't have a health bar. Instead, you want to hit your enemies as much as possible to raise your boost gauge. We'll get back to that later. Wizen is the powerhouse of the 7 deities, so you need to watch his moves very carefully. He's also able to fire projectiles from his arm, some of which can be fired back. When your burst gauge is full, you need to be in a position so that you can charge into him. This will cause a cinematic to play filled with QuickTime events, but since the game is built with them in mind, it's not so bad. Wyzen will then use the power of the mantra to transform into Vijara Wyzen. Now you must dodge and shoot projectiles while making a mad dash towards Wyzen. After another burst... well, that doesn't look pleasant. Asura will then transform into a 6-armed Vijara form. You'll then have to destroy the battleship Wyzen sends after you, followed by some more running and gunning. After some more clashing, you then proceed to slingshot the mountain-sized demigod into orbit. But that's not all. Using the mantra again, Wyzen unleashes his full power and transforms into Gogen Wyzen, reaching godlike levels of strength and becoming bigger than the Earth itself. He then attempts to squish you like an ant with his finger as Asura makes a final stand. The music's incredible, the action is so over the top, and it sets the game up for how insane it will be. Some may argue that this should be number 1 because of that, but in all honesty, I've got about 7 other bosses I'd rather fight. If you were to ask me what I thought was an underrated or underappreciated game, I would immediately point you to Pandora's Tower. For those that don't know, Pandora's Tower is a race against time. Your friend has been placed under a curse, and you must climb the 13 towers and slay the master of each tower to obtain their flesh, so the curse can be lifted. Which brings us to the master of the Treetop Tower. The first thing you might notice about this boss is it doesn't attack you when you enter the room. It just walks around minding his own business, paying no attention to you at all. Or maybe you weren't even aware of that because you have a time limit. The boss will only attack you out of self-defense, which is understandable seeing as you're trying to pierce a spear-tipped chain through its barky skull. The Master's primary attack is slamming a massive vine to the ground, but he can also do a jumping stomp and summon spiked roots to either protect himself or to trap you. On his body you'll find 3 glowing blue organs. Ripping them will cripple him, leaving his master flesh open. The fight is pretty easy, but it shows how you'll be using the Orcus chain against the other masters, and maybe even teach you some time management. Trust me when I say you don't want to go back to your friend with even half the timer gone. One of the things I look for in a good game is an intriguing story. It's really interesting to not only see the story they're trying to tell, but the way they tell it. Super Metroid is a great example on how to tell a story using the environments and gameplay. Okay, there's an opening segment with some dialogue, but that's all the text you'll get. But after that, you're thrown into the Cirrus space colony as it's being attacked, where you confront the space pirate leader himself, Ridley. Ridley will fly around screen and perform one of several attacks, including a tail lash, fireballs that spread when hitting the wall or floor, and a charge attack. The fight will end one of 2 ways. If you shoot him enough, he'll swoop down and fly away with the Metroid, or if you lose too much health, the same thing will happen. Okay, it's not very impressive gameplay-wise, but try looking at this from the story perspective. No matter the outcome, Ridley is never defeated. He simply flees and continues with his mission, leaving a weak Samus as the colony falls apart. Either way, Samus just isn't strong enough to defeat Ridley. And maybe she follows Ridley knowing well that there may be something in the Zebus ruins that can help her. Oh, you're up, bounty hunter. You got a date with revenge. The Legend of Zelda. If you're talking to a fan of the series and they're not talking about its huge sense of adventure, it's most likely they're talking about its boss fights, and really, who can blame them? I mean, if you're gonna give your players a massive world to explore, why not give them some kind of power fantasy to go along with it? So with about 17 games in the main series, what kind of boss could I get into? Nope. Nope. Close, but no. No. There, that's more like it. Holy hell, where do I start with this one? Well, apparently this faint's exoskeleton is strong enough that it can bathe in lava, and your attacks can't do anything. But if you use the grappling hook to swing from Valu's tail, the ceiling will fall, crushing Goma under its weight, cracking his armor. Do this enough and it will break completely. I love this fight simply for the concept. You're a little kid, and your first major challenge is this. His adventure has just begun. By now you might be seeing a pattern on this list. One of my favorite tropes for a boss is what I like to call the scaled boss fight. A battle where the boss is remarkably bigger than your character. But not all these bosses can be beaten alone. When you're about the size of a dime, you're gonna need some help fighting something as big as a large dragon fruit. Now most people their first time will probably attack its mandibles, but any Pikmin veteran will know that having Pikmin near an enemy's mouth is a very bad idea. Instead, you should try and get as close to its tail as possible. At this point, you only have two types of Pikmin at your disposal. I shouldn't say that, that makes it sound like they're not living things. You only have two types of Pikmin to help you out. The Rock Pikmin can break his crystal exoskeleton, but the more of its armor you break, the faster it'll get. The red Pikmin can grab onto its flesh, and they have the advantage of dealing extra damage. This fight does a good job of helping with strategy and showing you the dangers of the planet. Heck, just before you enter the fight, Alf will comment about something hollowing out the tree, and you find a data file from Olimar hinting at his possible death. Nature is a scary thing. Hey, remember when the spirit of Metal Gear was alive in gamers and developers alike? Yeah, those were good times. That said, us gamers can at least look back at the older games. Remember that time everyone hated Raiden for being a pretty boy, not Snake? Or the time that he managed to avoid drowning? Or how about that time he struggled to just barely survive a bunch of Metal Gears? What the hell?! So how do you make an originally hated character love? Make him a badass in his next appearance, then give him his own game where he's even more of a badass. Seriously, how do you grab a giant heated blade and flip a mech even with cybernetic enhancements? Well, anyway, the point of the battle is to attack the Metal Gear's legs until you go into blade mode and slash off the turrets and armor. Said turrets can shoot at you, and you'll have to deal with missiles that can blow up unless slashed. The Metal Gear can also charge at you and fire what I can only assume to be a plasma laser. When all its health is depleted, you will clash blades with it and do that. Well, since one of these things take free Stinger missiles to take down, Raiden should probably call an airstrike or request for explosives or... Or you can just slice the bastard in half because I forgot you can do things you couldn't do before. But Raiden decided to only cut off the arm, and after a chase with Sundowner, the unarmed mech comes back for another round. After slicing off more of the armor, the Metal Gear jumps back, and you go after it by jumping on a barrage of missiles. But apparently cutting off the other arm wasn't enough because it slams you into a building to which you run down and finally slice the whole thing in half. It's fun, it's epic, it's insane, and it's a great way to introduce the game's combat system, and a great way to show how strong Raiden's really gotten between games. Still questioning this though. There's only one way to describe this boss. Alien Robot Orochi. With a game as over the top as the Wonderful 101, you're gonna need a boss just as over the top to set the tone of the game as well as the rest of the bosses. And what sounds more over the top than 100 Defenders of Earth versus Giant Cybernetic Space Dragon? After the team transforms into their unlimited forms for the first time, the team chased the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon through the city in the Virgin Victory, avoiding the Cyber Dragon's attacks and the falling buildings. When all its health is depleted, you must grab its tail using the ship's anchor, allowing you to run onto it. Action time! After climbing up the wing and onto the back, two of the heads become aware of your presence and will try to get rid of you. You will be able to take control of one of the heads following its beatdown, or cut down, or whatever your preference is. Lombo will then crash into a building as he's monologuing, to which Orochi will drop the goddess statue and you must pursue it before it hits the ground. The time limit's forgiving, but you'll still need to be quick as the big serpent will try to destroy your platform. After some more morphin time, Lombo will attempt to destroy you himself with his Decno Bow. That you can thankfully counter with Unite Sword. When that's taken care of, you must rebuild the goddess's arrow and launch your team through Lombo, then grab the Decno Bow and slice him and Orochi in half like a Metal Gear. Platinum Games does a really good job of making first bosses with the kind of intensity you would expect from a first boss. So what could possibly top this?
They can do it, 'cause they're heroes second to none. The unstoppable, wonderful 101.
Dragons, giant insects, even demigods. These bosses were great for setting the story and making you feel powerful. But with the exception of the Treetop Master, there's only one thing that no other boss on this list has given me. A strong sense of emotion. How can you give off something like that and set the story in just a few hours? How about having someone dear to you? Someone you've grown to care about. Gone. Just like that. Metal Face, the face mechon that dare to attack your home with an army of soulless machines. Innocent people slaughtered, friends killed protecting their home, and death fills the air. Their last hope? The Monado. A weapon that can slay mechon with ease, and with Shulk as its new wielder, it comes with new powers. With the Monado in hand, you encounter Metal Face, but it has little effect on him. When all hope seems lost, Fiora comes to help, and then this happens. Fiora may not have been the most developed character, but we still learned so much about her. She's calm and collected, even during a crisis. She does her best to help others. We know her relationship with her brother, with Ryan, with Shulk. She's a kind person, and all you can do is helplessly sit there and watch her die. Some people may call me out for placing a spoiler warning for something that happens at the beginning of the game, but remember what I said earlier, first impressions mean a lot to people. And this is the moment that made me want to play through Xenoblade Chronicles. Why should I take that away from anyone?
It feels so good.
I will pursue that faced Mechon.
Oh hey, you made it to the end. Did you enjoy the video? Well, let me know by leaving a like or tell me in the comments. Constructive criticism is welcome too. This video took longer to make than I would have liked it to, but that's probably a combination of me having work and me not being used to making this style of video. I think my next list will be on some of the games I played this year. Probably won't get to work on that for a while though. I'd like to get some time in with Pokemon Sun and Moon first. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.